Imagine waking up one day and discovering your father was one of history's greatest monsters. The blood of a Nazi architect of genocide runs through your veins. His name, one of the most reviled in human history, is yours. What do you do with that inheritance? Run from it, embrace it, or somehow find redemption? The children of Hitler's inner circle faced this impossible reality. Some changed their names and disappeared. Others defended their fathers until death. A few dedicated their lives to fighting the very hatred that defined their family legacy. Today, we pull back the curtain on history's most haunting inheritance, the untold stories of the sons and daughters who carried the burden of mankind's darkest chapter. This isn't just about what became of Nazi descendants. It's about the fundamental question we all face. Are we defined by our blood or by our choices? If you're fascinated by these hidden chapters of history, hit that subscribe button now. The past isn't as buried as we think, and its lessons have never been more urgent. Gudrun Himmler. Gudrun Himmler, born on the 8th of August, 1929, was the only child of Heinrich Himmler. Despite the notorious history associated with her father, who was one of the key architects of the Holocaust, she remained a staunch supporter of him until her death in 2018. Heinrich Himmler had a special fondness for his daughter, ensuring she was flown to his Berlin offices from her residence in Munich, where she lived with her mother. He maintained close contact with her, making daily phone calls when she was at home and sending weekly letters. Heinrich affectionately referred to her by her childhood nickname, Puppy. She also joined him during certain official functions. She contested the widely accepted belief that her father committed suicide by biting into a hidden cyanide capsule. Instead, she insisted he was assassinated. Following World War II, both she and her mother were apprehended by American forces and detained in a series of camps situated in Italy, France, and Germany. They were summoned to Nuremberg to provide testimony at the trials and subsequently released in November 1946. Throughout her life, Gudrun worked diligently to preserve her father's image and memory. She became an integral part of the Stille Hilfe, Silent Aid, a secretive organization providing support to arrested, condemned, or fugitive former SS members. Her involvement with the organization was a testament to her unwavering loyalty towards her father's legacy. Second, Martin Bormann Jr. Martin Bormann Jr., the eldest son of Nazi Party official Martin Bormann, has lived a life marked by the heavy legacy of his father's infamous identity. Born on April 14, 1930, he was only a child during the height of his father's power and the atrocities of World War II. Growing up under the shadow of his father's prominent position in Hitler's inner circle, Bormann Jr.'s childhood was far from ordinary. However, the young Bormann was kept sheltered from the gruesome reality of the Nazi regime. After the war, he was confronted with the horrific actions attributed to his father, a realization that led him on a journey of remorse and redemption. Distancing himself from his father's ideology, Bormann Jr. converted to Catholicism and devoted his life to the church. He even worked in the mission fields of Congo and Cameroon, striving to make amends for his father's misdeeds. However, in 2011, Bormann found himself at the center of abuse allegations. A past student claimed that Bormann abused him when he was 12 years old in the early 1960s. There were further accusations of severe physical violence against other students. At the time these allegations surfaced, Bormann was battling dementia, rendering him either unwilling or unable to address the accusations. While these allegations never led to any legal action, the independent Klasnik Commission, set up to probe into the abuses within the Catholic Church in Austria, awarded the accuser compensation. Tredje, Nicholas Frank. Nicholas Frank, son of infamous Nazi war criminal Hans Frank, has spent a significant portion of his life grappling with his father's dark legacy. Born in 1939, Frank was too young to comprehend the atrocities committed during the Holocaust. However, his adulthood has been largely consumed by a quest to understand and publicly denounce his father's actions. Hans Frank, known as the Butcher of Poland, was Hitler's personal lawyer and later served as Governor General of occupied Poland. Despite his father's monstrous acts, Nicholas Frank has taken an uncommon route, confronting his heritage head-on. He has written several books, including In the Shadow of the Reich, which detail his efforts to comprehend his father's deeds and their impact on his life. Frank's commitment to educating others about the Holocaust and its lasting effects on families of those involved, including perpetrators and victims, is commendable. His candid public discussions add a unique perspective to Holocaust remembrance and serve as a potent reminder of the atrocities that can result from unchecked hatred and bigotry. Gerda Etta Göring. Etta Göring was the only child of Hermann Göring and his second wife, actress Emmy Sonnemann. As the daughter of one of Hitler's right-hand men, born just before the eruption of World War II, Etta's early years were mainly spent with her mother at the Karenhall, the Göring family estate. Etta's early life was defined by the luxury and privilege that came with her father's powerful position in Hitler's Germany. She was often photographed at public events, a symbol of the Nazi regime's attempt to project an image of wholesome family life. She was the recipient of numerous historic art pieces during her childhood, including a Lucas Cranach the Elder's Madonna and Child painting. As the war neared its end, she and her mother relocated to their mountain residence at Obersalzberg, close to Berchtesgaden. The end of the Second World War brought a reversal of fortune for the Göring family. Hermann Göring was sentenced to death at the Nuremberg trials for war crimes. Although he escaped the gallows by committing suicide, his actions left Etta with a tainted legacy that she spent the rest of her life trying to reconcile. Etta Göring attempted to live a life away from the public eye. She rarely spoke about her father in public, but maintained that he was a good man in private conversations. In the decades of the 1950s and 1960s, many of the valuable gifts she had received in her youth, including the Madonna and Child artwork, became embroiled in long legal disputes, most of which she lost in 1968. While the children of other notable Nazis like Gudrun Himmler and Albert Speer Jr. often publicly discussed their father's roles, Göring notably refrained from such public discourse. However, during a 1986 television interview in Sweden, she broke her silence to express her deep affection towards both of her parents. She passed away in 2018, leaving behind a life forever shaped by the shadow of her father's name. Femte Rolf Mengele. The son of Josef Mengele, Auschwitz's infamous Angel of Death, Rolf lived much of his life under the weight of an unbearable legacy. Born on March 16, 1944, Rolf grew up far from the horrors of the concentration camps, unaware of the atrocities his father committed. His early life was wrapped in mystery, even lies. He was led to believe that his father had been a war hero. The truth? He wouldn't discover that until he was a teenager. Still, Rolf tried to live a normal life. He studied law and built a career as a corporate attorney, but the ghost of his father never left him. After the war, Josef Mengele escaped to South America, leaving his son behind in Europe. This distance only fueled speculation. Nazi hunters suspected Rolf was in contact with his father, and to some extent, they were right. Mengele had written letters to his son. Those letters stirred something in Rolf, enough to send him on a journey to South America in 1977 to meet his father face to face. What he found was chilling. Josef Mengele showed no remorse. He tried to justify his crimes at Auschwitz, as if they were logical, necessary. Rolf was disgusted, but even then he couldn't bring himself to turn his father in. He stayed silent, and because of that silence, the Angel of Death escaped justice. Afterward, Rolf chose to disappear. He changed his identity, cut ties with the past. It's believed he now lives quietly in Germany, a retired lawyer, a family man, a man who never truly escaped his name. Sex. Wolf Hess. The only son of Rudolf Hess, Adolf Hitler's deputy Führer. Wolf's story, however, takes a very different path. Rudolf Hess famously flew solo to Scotland in 1941, hoping to negotiate peace with Britain. He failed, captured, tried at Nuremberg, and sentenced to life in solitary confinement at Spandau prison. He died there in 1987, reportedly by suicide at the age of 93. But unlike Rolf Mengele, Wolf Hess didn't run from his father's legacy. He embraced it. Wolf spent his entire life defending Rudolf Hess, claiming he wasn't a war criminal, just a man doing his duty. As a teenager, he frequently visited his father in prison, but his efforts didn't stop there. In the 1950s, he founded the Committee to Free Rudolf Hess, garnering support from hundreds of thousands, even drawing in politicians. He wrote books, gave interviews, and pushed a single narrative: that Rudolf Hess was a patriot, not a villain. After his father's death, Wolf insisted it wasn't suicide, but foul play by the British authorities. To the very end, he defended the Nazi legacy. Wolf Hess died in 2001. Albert Speer Jr., born on July 29, 1934, just days before Hitler took full control of Germany. His childhood was spent in Berchtesgaden, a peaceful alpine village where Hitler kept his private retreat. Old film reels show young Albert playing on the porch of Hitler's villa, just steps away from the dictator himself. His father, Albert Speer Sr., was Hitler's chief architect and armaments minister. He kept Nazi war production alive, largely through forced labor, which prolonged the war by years. After the war, Speer Sr. was one of the few high-ranking Nazis to express remorse. He served 20 years in prison. During his father's incarceration, Albert Jr. lived with his grandparents in Heidelberg. The trauma of war and family history left its mark. He developed a severe stutter as a child, but eventually overcame it. He started out as a carpenter, then followed in his father's professional footsteps, but insisted it was his path, not his father's. In a 2010 interview with Süddeutsche Zeitung, he said, "I have tried my whole life to separate myself from my father, to distance myself." He rarely spoke of him and never tried to defend him. Albert Speer Jr. passed away in 2017 at the age of 83, not as a symbol of guilt or denial, but as a man who spent his life quietly rebuilding, brick by brick, his own legacy. If you found this story thought-provoking, drop a comment below and let us know what stood out. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe as a humble offering to the gods of the algorithm. See you in the next one. Thanks for watching.